Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhodes on the Buy Here Pay Here morning show. Take it away, you two.
Hey,
good morning.
Welcome, friends, to
Happy
another
Friday
episode of the morning show, talking all things Buy Here, Pay Here, covering some news today.
We some really interesting aspects or perspectives on some of the things that are big in the news that dealers should be paying attention to, and we recognize that there are a lot of places for people to go for information, and we really appreciate you listening to us, and that we also have people that listen that aren't members of certain groups and social media or things like that. So it's just really important that these things that we're going to talk about today are understood and forefront for all buyer payer dealers, because these things don't just affect people that are part of NIADA. It affects everybody.
And I can also say that, this news is selected by supercomputers, if you will, because I went to Claude and asked for the top happenings, that would affect buy here, payer dealers or the buy here, payer segment. And it came up with several. We identified 4, some of which they're things we've covered before, people are well familiar with. We're just kind of offering the latest developments in some of these fronts, and then some other news. One thing I don't want to forget to mention is we're now just about 3 weeks out from the NIADA convention. That's going to be in Denver, starting on Sunday evening, the 21st, I believe is that date. So if you haven't bought those tickets, you're going to want to grab those and hop on a plane.
I'm not sure if they're sold out on the hotel yet.
I don't know.
There are a lot of hotels in kind of the area if they don't have any more ones there. But it's always a good idea to stay where the conference is being held, because in between things you can head to your room, and it's after they're done. It's a really good idea to be close by, because the conversations that happen in hallways or in restaurants and bars and all of that at a venue are priceless.
The men's room.
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't. No, those are all private men conversations.
Which is funny, because last night Jim had a meeting with V8, and he forgot that his lapel mic, that's what he was using, was on, and he had the meeting started.
You're not going to tell him what was said.
No, I'm not. Yeah. But I mean, it's kind of one of those things that actually he came out and he left. It was live. There was only one person there. They were waiting for everyone to join. The person had gotten up to do something too, but Jim's mic was live, and he comes in and he's like, "How are you doing, honey?" And I said, "Great, we're having pork chops for dinner." And I'm doing it a little different. And so it was people, funny.
So I had the presence of mind to turn off my camera, but still had the microphone. So it was one
of the, you see those.
So
they make the news.
Part of the mystery, that can happen with VA. What will Jim and Michelle talk about in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So quick note on that. We're talking about news today, and I wanted to make sure I mention, Michelle, this thing about this grading that we're doing, the business model index. We had all of our V8 meetings now. We've now got all of those, and I was able to introduce that grading to all of our members. And as I shared with some of them before they started seeing the letter grades, some of you it's going to be a little jarring for what you're going to see, but of course the measurements are all the same. And and I've got some meetings, some follow-up meetings with some dealers next week, because this is really, it's impactful. It's an AI sweep of all the data that we have, and it's being able to analyze and compare letter grades. So that's a pretty big development.
And when the AI that we use has access to all of this data, and all of the things that we've taught it from everything we've done in the business, because it has access to everything. So it's really, it's a very good perspective, and it's because there's just the long a long thread of
Right.
data that it's pulling
Yeah.
from. So
It's really rich.
really, really
And
cool.
I've been
So
working with AI to kind of
looking forward-
identify.
Yeah, looking forward to the day that it's not available only to V8 members, but that there's a light that's available to the general public. But I mean, just that, and then the resources that come with, all right, I want to improve on this, so
Right.
where do I go?
Right.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
should we get started on our?
Why not?
I think that's a great idea. I'm going to add this to the stage. I don't know if it's going to immediately
Start playing.
That's the wrong one. Okay.
So we got a little audio teed
Yeah,
up. So
Heard the name Tricolor Holdings yet? You need to. Last September, one of the largest BHPH dealer operations in the country, 65 retail locations across 6 states, collapsed virtually overnight. The company filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy amid allegations of an $800 million fraud scheme, and by December, the FBI and federal prosecutors had issued criminal indictments against the CEO and COO. This one has ripple effects for every independent BHPH dealer in America. And here's why it matters to you.
All right, perfect. We've talked about Tricolor.
Tricolor is how they say it in Spanish, but yeah.
And, for some people, this is like old news, but there are a few things that ripples. It's interesting. One thing can happen and you pay attention to the first couple of ripples, but there are ripples that have grown from this whole thing.
Yeah. And, there's not a whole lot new there, except that with enough history, you're able to piece together all the news, including the public records that come out of the court stuff. And so I think the stuff that was new to me is that apparently both Chase and Fifth Third Bank have reported nearly $200 million a piece. They've each seen about $200 million in losses. Now those are huge numbers.
That's almost $500 million.
Yeah, and the other pieces I don't have it here in front of me, but I don't know if it has it in your material there. That it said how many, kind of the impact of that, like what was left in the wake of that. It said 25,000 creditors.
Yeah.
25,000 creditors.
Like over 100,000 loan accounts, 10,000 vehicles.
Right.
And over 25,000 creditors.
And
one of the things that they are saying is that it's that Tricolor was focused on deep subprime borrowers, many of them Hispanic immigrants with little to no credit history.
Right.
So, with everything, happening with deporting, that was likely.
It was prior. That all kind of set in motion prior.
Yeah,
of course, that was fraud related with them. And so, but also one of the things I saw is that the kind of the larger markets recognized that when Fifth Third came out and kind of disclosed that they were dealing with a fraud situation of about 200 million, they didn't say who it was, but the industry quickly figured out that it was.
They call
Tricolor.
it double pledging, I guess. We're using your same loan portfolios for multiple lines of credit. So they with different banks, but they as of allege that as of August 2025, they had approximately 1.4 billion in real collateral, but the pledge 2.2 billion to lenders.
Okay.
So they had 1.4 billion in collateral and 2.2 billion to lenders, and that's almost a $1 billion gap.
Yeah. So I think this is important. Let's pause and talk about this, what this means for Main Street dealers. Okay. So if you're a dealer in, Midtown Texas or whatever, and you're going to be looking for a line of credit, this has always been true, but now it's more public. It's more it's more visible about what the impact is. So the thing about the value of paper as an asset, it happens. People, there are big banks right now on Wall Street that hold lots of paper as collateral, right? It's not that it's but it's important to understand why banks are uncomfortable with paper alone as their collateral, especially because it's not like it has a serial number, right? That they can, or that it has a title that they can hold. So it makes for uncomfortable collateral, and that affects us in this business of
They're
pledging.
going to be significantly more cautious, even, big banks and little banks, if they're paying any attention to this. And so things like clean businesses, transparent operations, those kind of things it's going to be scrutinized more. So, that in itself, we teach that all the time, white hat way, transparency. It's just, you just don't, and then we're going to be talking about another thing around transparency in just a few minutes, but it mentions that this collapse is the single biggest reason the Federal Reserve, Senate Banking Committee, and multiple agencies are now training their eyes on our space.
Right. Yep.
So, we're going to talk about CFPB and all of that, but it's like this, there is an eye on it. And besides that, it's just the reputational effect of this. When we have this kind of big fraud, the entire industry gets painted with a wide brushstroke. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're a small dealer with, who's just really doing well in their community. It's just, unless you're known in your community, you are one of them, kind of thing. It's like it's a broad brushstroke. If you're known in your community and your customers is like these, you are, which is another white hat way thing, is how are you known in your community? That makes a big difference. So,
and how are you perceived, as being trustworthy? Before we get into the CFPB part, let's cover this delinquency part. So I'm going to kind of talk about the subprime. That's kind of next in our little audio. So let's play that. And
you're adding it to the
okay.
The delinquency numbers in subprime auto right now are not a blip. They are a 32-year record. According to Fitch Ratings, in January of 2026, more than 6.9% of subprime borrowers were 60 or more days past due on their auto loans. That's the highest level since January of 1994. But here's the part that really matters. The headline economy looks fine. Unemployment is stable. GDP is positive. So why are your customers struggling? The answer is something economists call the K-shaped economy. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your portfolio the same way.
Yeah, so that's, whoops, I didn't quite get the pause.
I was like, okay, what's a K-shaped economy?
Yeah.
And so
I've seen mention of this, and it's really, it has to do with how the affluent manage a crisis or how they're affected in a scenario like this. So you think about the middle part of the economy. So go ahead, Michelle.
It says a K-shape is one arm goes up, one arm goes down, and our customers have to be on the down instead of the up. So, dealers, all of us out there that are, we have felt the pinch of different things. But if we're not one of the people in this country or our customers, we're like, oh, everything's better. Everything feels better. Everything, it's better, but it's not better for them. It's on a downward. We have talked about this many times, and it just continues to trend.
Yeah, I got some graphs to show. Let me put those on the screen. I don't know if you need to take us off.
I thought it's like January 2026, 6.9% of subprime borrowers were 60 plus days past due. That is a 385 month record. It's like, if you take it down to the month, we haven't seen that kind of,
and it's just in subprime.
385 months.
Is that prime or subprime, or does it say
subprime borrowers? And this is from per Finch rating.
Fitch, yeah. Fitch, so so I don't know how well people can see that on the screen, but we've got a graph that we've created. So I
change this.
I think I can
a little bit different, so you can see it a little bit differently. This is really interesting, and I have been beating this drum for a few years. That dip. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you are not, I'm going to take us out of this picture so that people can see it better. there's a dip, and now your banner is okay. There, thank you. That dip was the free money during COVID.
Right.
So now, again, the dip was because people had extra money in their pocketbook.
Yeah.
And they were being responsible with the extra money in their pocketbook. They were being irresponsible because it would have maintained itself, and they would have been like, I don't care about my car payment. I'm going to go blow it on whatever. But they paid their bills when they had more money in their bank account.
So Claude also called it, quote, free money. So not just Michelle is pointing this out. Claude recognizes that dip is attributed to the stimulus money that came out, in the COVID period. So that's why that dip's so low. And you can see this graph is just, are you seeing when I hover over those things, Michelle, do you see the
I can barely.
So, but it's an interactive map that Claude generated based on, and this goes back to January of 19. I don't know that our viewers will be able to see that very well, but you can see that it has been running high since 2024. Our dealers really feel some of that in their charge-offs, right? They've been charging off the non-performing. But I think what this shows, when you talk about a 32-year high, what that tells you is that, at least let me just speak for myself and what I see from the Claude analysis, in addition to what we see across the news, is that this says that the customer that we serve in subprime is feeling the pinch. Obviously, their costs are up. We can talk about some of those things as well. We'll talk about tariffs in a minute, but that's really what this suggests, is that, and then some of these others, let me see if I can show another graph. This one right here that shows the orange bar on top and then the green below. The green is prime. So you can see that while there's been an inching up, since this is since May of 2021, it was at 6.14 for prime, and now it's inched up to, so it's 0.43 actually. I'm looking at the wrong thing. It's 0.14, not 6, and then 0.43. So while that's triple, you can see graphically that's a minor correction or increase.
So those
relative
people
to what's
that
happening.
have 650 plus credit, that's what they're
They can
experiencing.
afford the eggs.
The red one is what the subprime is experiencing.
Right. Yeah. Which is really just a really great single graph that shows the impact of how those who have less income are feeling the pinch much more, and dealers are going to be suffering the charge-offs, and they have been. Our dealers, and I was spoken in Houston a week before last, and I was asked about whether there was any indication that charge-offs are improving. I asked the group, I said, let me answer that in July, because I think it would be better to get. Yeah, I think we get the second quarter close will be a better indication. The first quarter, we have some data, but first quarter is when tax refunds are flowing, and so it's maybe not the best indicator. So we get the second quarter close. We hope we'll be able to see some improvement in those numbers.
We talked a little bit about the tax money we're going to be covering that.
Yeah.
I wanted to just bring a couple of things out in this. It says when the pandemic ended and the recovery began, this is where that K thing, right? Lower income households never really recovered, and they've been on a slow grinding down climb ever since. So it says the cruel irony is that macro data looks healthy. So the things when you're watching your national news, and people are like, they're lying, because I hear this from different camps. It's like, they're lying. That's not true. That's fake news. It's not fake news. So it's because there's no alarm being sounded at the policy level about this, because the macro level looks healthy. The customer is experiencing a completely different economy. Their rents are higher, their grocery bills are higher, their utilities are higher, and they have elevated credit card balances like we've never seen before, all simultaneously. The car payment is often the last thing they can afford. and the first thing they will sacrifice when something breaks.
And they don't, they may be employed. I mean, the employment
Mhm.
rates are fine. GDP looks fine.
Mhm.
On the larger scale,
Yeah.
you might look at that and say everything's fine. But it's like, just because I have a job doesn't mean
Yeah.
that I'm not, at least at subprime level, that I'm not
Mhm.
feeling that crunch.
So it says, what does this mean for an operation, for a buyer payer operation? It gave a couple of really great points, and these are things we talk about. Underwriting, you can't evaluate a deal in isolation anymore. And so you have to think about their total burden, what else they're carrying, because a customer who will qualify on paper has 4 other high important obligations, and it makes them a different risk profile than the numbers are suggesting. So, that for a dealer to take a little extra time and talk to someone about what is their rent gone up, and understanding their grocery bill, and understanding higher utilities, and credit card balance, that those things, if we want to try to mitigate our repo losses, charge-off losses, then it's right now it's more important than ever to have these kind of conversations, to make sure you're putting someone in a loan that's not going to strap them, and then the car is the first thing to go, especially if something breaks down, because they don't even have money for groceries, let alone fixing the car. So,
right. So you ready something? Are you still seeing the screen? Are we still sharing the?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me show this last bar, because I think it ties to what you were just saying. When we talk about what does this mean to a Main Street dealer? Like if I'm a buy here, pay here dealer, and I'm got 300 accounts, and I'm trying to sell 20, 25 cars a month, whatever that looks like. What does that mean for them? I would say the single biggest thing is underwriting. This graph shows what Claude refers to as lax underwriting score in subprime. These red bars are vintages of contracts that were originated in 2022. Here's 2023. Those two are the worst bars. Why? Because they theorize that in a post-COVID period, especially when money was flowing, post-COVID, whatever, that dealers or underwriters, lenders, a little lax in the subprime sector, and now they're paying for it in terms of these vintages, as they call it, in 2022 and 2023. So how a dealer would solve that is, what it's really suggesting here is that when we do our underwriting, we don't just look at the PTI. I'm somebody who came from a background of, I used to be able to say in training that, it didn't pay a lot of attention to debt to income. And we did put in pieces like pie charts, and part of our analysis was in the customer's overall obligations. That was primarily roof over your head, how many kids do we feed in the family, or how many in the household, right? So that's really looking at that more than debts. But I think we want to look beyond a simple payment to income ratio. We want to make sure we understand the customer's, quote, global financial circumstances, so that we have a chance to make sure it's a good fit. And what I used to be able to say is that we can expect a customer to make their car payment a top priority, because they need it to get back and forth to work. And while those things are generally true, groceries, you need a roof over their head, and they need to feed their family before the car.
Exactly.
Right?
Can you go back to that first one that we looked at where there was the dip? So there's a point here made that I'm like, this just makes sense. This data, you look at this, is telling you that your customers are not irresponsible. They're stretched.
Right.
The collections process built on relationship and communication will dramatically outperform one built on pressure tactics in this environment.
Amen.
These people want to pay. Our customers want to pay.
This is Claude.
They just need a conversation.
This is Claude saying this. Is not Michelle. This is, you're reading what Claude generated.
Saying this.
Right.
And so a conversation, which, this is something that, like with the White Hat Way AI,
right.
We are in beta right now for an AI that will reach out for nothing but communication and engagement.
Mhm.
It's not about collections.
It's check-ins.
Not about sales. It's about keeping the communication, the lines open.
That's right.
Because we know, and I hear it all the time from dealers, it's so frustrating when you see someone who's there on time and they pay,
Mhm.
and then something happens, they ghost you, and all of a sudden you're having to repo a car.
Yeah.
But they don't, because they are pay and they're on time. There is no communication with them.
Right.
So yeah,
Well, communication's good. They still have to have the
Mhm.
income to make the payment, right? But we don't know that that's the problem unless we're talking to them,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So,
exactly
if they're dealing with both high grocery prices and a water pump problem, we might not know that unless we're in communication with them, because customers are frustrated and stressed.
I don't know about you, but I've had times in my life where I'm like, okay, I'm down to the last $300 in
Mhm.
my account. It's, I've had things come up.
Mhm.
Maybe it's been Christmas,
Yeah.
because Christmas is, or maybe it's been, for those of us that have a lot more bandwidth.
Mhm.
I hate to use the word privilege, but it really is.
Yeah.
We might have just been on our vacation and we just don't. So, and you go to the store, and you're like, on the way to the store, it's like your engine lights blinking,
Mhm.
and you got $300 left, and you're heading to the grocery store, and it's like,
Mhm.
what do I do?
Mhm.
I mean, I'm going to get my next influx of money in 2 weeks, but my car may not last 2 weeks, and I need groceries.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you do? We've all been in a watered down situation like that. Our customers live that stress every single day.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's so important that you can't help who won't talk to you. You
Right.
can't help someone that won't talk to you.
And they won't
Yeah.
talk to you sometimes unless they have a relationship and some level of trust.
Mhm.
So this is where the trust deposits come in, the ongoing communication. We need to show that we care and that
Mhm.
we have solutions,
Mhm.
right? That's another thing, is it doesn't serve much to talk to somebody when there are no answers. There's nothing that
Mhm.
can be done. Turn in the
Mhm.
car, right?
Mhm.
Then that's not going to get us. It's not going to cut down on this
Mhm.
percentage for us. So
So getting creative and, recognizing that it's not about them being irresponsible.
right.
It's about them being stretched.
Yeah.
And as Tommy Brandis says, I've never known.
We got a black screen, babe. We got.
I've never known a customer who that have the ability to stretch a dollar
Mhm.
like our customers do.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
all right, should we go to the next one?
Yeah, let's talk
Okay.
about regulatory developments. It's not much
This
new
is
news.
but it is rich, and we've been hearing different things about the FTC 97. Let's
Mhm.
play the thing.
This may play the end of the last one
Uh-huh.
before it starts here. Whoops, got to share it first.
Stand it, you'll never look at your portfolio the same way. Here's the regulatory situation in plain English. The CFPB, the federal agency that historically oversaw auto lending consumer protections, is being dramatically scaled back under the Trump administration. Some dealers might hear that and think, great news. But here's the catch. The FTC just sent warning letters to 97 dealer groups in March of this year. The Senate Banking Committee has launched a formal investigation into BHPH repossession practices, and state-level enforcement is accelerating to fill the federal void. Less CFPB doesn't mean less scrutiny. It means different scrutiny. And some of it is coming from directions dealers aren't used to watching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Senate Banking Committee is now on this.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, you don't know what the teeth they've got, but the FTC still has teeth. And so, I think what that says is we don't want to be letter number 98. This is not new news. Again, it was March, but I think it's relevant in that, this stuff is still is going to affect us in terms of how we position ourselves as business is going forward, so that we're not on that radar. And, we see Steve Levine's kind of releases on this. And so we still have to work to make sure that we stay on top of our this is again about customer relations and making sure we're treating our customers right, and that we keep our nose clean, so to speak, in terms of our operation.
There is so much just on this one point. There is so much information that it's like, oh my gosh, there's really, really rich information on this. I remember the yay, CFPBs being defunded, and now we don't have to, where we were out, Steve Levine, and it's the CARS rule. We should be watching, we should be doing all this stuff. CFPB now, it's not gone. It just looks at some of the biggest operators. And so with the way that this is, it's gone down to, they will be focusing on the biggest operators, is what it's looking like. And the idea that the scrutiny just shifted. It didn't change. It didn't go away. It just shifted, and it shifted in places that people are not trained on, that they're not watching. And so it's going state, it's the Senate Banking Committee. Who would have thought that the Senate Banking Committee would now be putting BHPH under that kind of a spotlight? Because it's not a customer, it's banking. It's like we are being discussed like a merger between JPMorgan and or whatever, it's like it's as a whole, as an entity. So there are some pretty big things on that. And then Senate investigation. Senator Elizabeth Warren launched a formal probe into auto lending and repossession practices this February. She sent letters directly to major BHPH services, including car hop and drive time. Those are big ones that we see. So there is a big, she's started an investigation, a Senate investigation. The trigger is auto repossessions have hit their highest levels since 2008. Remember what happened in 2008?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, 2008. Yeah. It's the highest it's ever been since then. And so the concern with the CFPB sidelined, there's no federal backstop preventing illegal or erroneous repossessions. And so the Senate is trying to create a paper trail on industry practices. And then you've got your state level enforcement is also accelerating to fill this federal void. Because the state, it's been taken care of by the federal, but now that it's not, it's like we still need to protect our constituents.
Yeah, let's talk a minute about, try to imagine if you're somebody who's not from the car business, not from the buy here, pay here business. If you had somebody just sitting here, a friend of ours, and you asked them, what do you think they would be looking at in terms of repossession practices? Why would they be inquiring about repo practices? What do we suppose they're looking at? There are a couple of things come to mind for me. It's going to be how timely we repossess, like how flexible and how consistent are we in repossession? Because if we change practices midstream without notifying the customers that we're changing our practices, that would be among the things, if I were a federal regulator, this would be among the things I'd be trying to make sure that people were consistent about that and fair. And then the other thing would be, you could argue it's the same thing, but if people have heard of churning in our business, that's a big negative. It's obviously, it's something to be watchful of. And I think people who are outside the business might recognize that as a problem as well, to say that when we quickly repossess and we finance the car again to another customer, and we do that over and over again, that's generally described as churning, and it's viewed pretty unfavorably by regulators. So we just want to be watchful about that. Look, a lot of our dealers will recycle an inventory. Inventory is hard to come by. If we do repossess a car for whatever reason, this is not to say that we shouldn't finance the car again. It's simply, if you look at overall in totality, how would a regulator view our practices in terms of how we process repos? How cooperative are we? How much of an opportunity did we give the consumer who was repossessed an opportunity to resolve that? That's, I think, where you start to get into something that looks unfair. And, we're talking about some fairly subjective things here, but they can be backed up by some numbers in terms of our practices and repossessions.
So Claude, bottom line for listeners is the regulatory environment is not friendlier.
Okay.
It's just differently structured.
Okay.
And it might feel friendlier because the ones that you always have your eyes trained on are not doing the same thing that they did before. There are we should be looking at opening up our view because now it's state AGs and Congress and all of that we're having to deal with. So this is what Claude said: dealers who have clean, transparent, documented practices are in a strong position. So
I agree.
That's one.
And they're likely to be around.
Dealers who have been relying on regulatory gaps are increasingly exposed. This is exactly the environment where white hat way operation is a competitive advantage.
Thanks for the plug,
Claude. Not just
Claude.
an ethical choice.
Yeah, Claude dropped that in there because it knows our stuff. Yeah, it knows who we are. But so shall we move on to the impact of tariffs? And this one is a little bit heavy. It's kind of a tricky topic because it's hard for us to know. So let's just kind of lean on what Claude has to say about the impact of tariffs. You got that there?
Oh, let's add it to the stage.
You may have heard tariffs discussed mostly in the context of new car prices. And yes, that affects new vehicle dealers significantly. But for BHPH operators, the tariff story hits differently. And in some ways, it hits you in places you might not expect. There's a silver lining in the demand picture. More buyers priced out of new vehicles means more people looking at used. But the cost side of your business is feeling pressure too, and it's worth knowing exactly where. If you haven't heard the name
Okay.
Okay.
Amen.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it is shocking how expensive. Okay, it's going to date me. A car costs as much as a house did when I first got married.
Okay.
I mean, I think I bought my first house for like $89,000.
Okay.
That's what
You're saying a car today costs.
Costs. I mean, it's like, so maybe we should just, it's ridiculous. And it prices a lot of people out of, I mean, there's not I don't feel good about having $1,000 a month car payment. I unless you're making $1,000 a day, that's a lot of money to put out there for a car payment. And so, it is talking about the tariffs that, like it mentioned, mostly new cars, but it's this trickle down effect of people can't afford that, so they're going to go here, and so they're going there, which is going to push things downward.
So we saw some of this in COVID. So and we saw some of this whenever there was the chip shortage. So what happens is, remember all the empty car lots, the franchise car lots, when the chip shortage happened, suddenly there was inventory was drying up. So what happens? In order to have inventory, the new car people go out and buy used cars. Well, that's part of what would be happening here too, because if tariffs are causing consumers to not buy new, then that means new car dealers are going to want to have heavy used car inventory, which means they're competing with the local buy here, pay here dealer.
Was like it wasn't that many years ago.
So we just really, it hasn't ever really recovered. And I can make the case that, I'm going to date myself a little bit here. I can make the case that used car prices started creeping up back when Obama did the cash for clunkers thing, right? So they started pulling a lot of the older stuff off the market. And so used car prices started creeping up then. And it really has just kind of been a steady climb for different factors here. But, dealers, that's the tricky thing about this is we just showed on other graphs where consumers are feeling stress and pressure financially, which means they're going to have a limited down payment. They're going to have a limited capacity to make a regular installment payment. But the dealer's cost in the car that they are providing to the customer is higher than it was 5 years ago. Yeah, it is definitely supply and demand, but it's also straight risk for the dealer. When the dealer has to adjust to that and pay based on limited supply and pay a high price, then that means that their cost and their risk in the contract is higher. And I think it's just, it's one of those things where I think this is a time, if I were advising dealers, in starting a business or looking at their own business, I would say we got to really run the math and make sure that we don't make a mistake in underwriting so tightly that we can't kill our sales because we can suffer in ways that hurts. We kind of have to be able to stomach that higher cost of car in the whole deal structure and mathematics, and not penalize the customer by forcing them to a high payment in the interest of making the deal work in your software, your dashboard in underwriting, because that's not going to be a successful loan. That doesn't help you, doesn't help the customer. And so I think what we want to we're just going to have to run that math and see if we allow the customer to get to a payment that they can really manage. That may mean a longer contract. It's a time for us to look at leasing for these reasons. If we can do a lease, and we can do the same in a buy here, pay here thing. It's just the math is a little bit different. But the idea that we're going to put a customer in a car for 2 years and then be able to trade them into something else.
That's a whole nother conversation we've been talking about. It's like, oh my gosh, the numbers show 2 years are the sweet spot.
Well, sort of. That's oversimplistic, but it's like it does start to trail off. It looks like in some of our data that we're analyzing now. But I think it just is a time to think about how can we make it fit for the customer and still make it make sense for us financially, because the cost of cars is so high and there seems to be no real end in sight on that.
And around the tariffs, it's not it's harder to get inventory, and the inventory is going to cost you a little bit more, but it made some really other good points. One, reconditioning and repair costs, because those parts for a car that you're going to do your recon, it's a 25% tariff on imported auto parts means the cost of everything from brake pads to alternators to transmissions is going up. For buy here, pay here dealers who recondition inventory before retailing it, it's going to hit directly on your cost per unit. Parts, so, there's the parts part. The next one is service and warranty costs. Now you're thinking to yourself, how is that going to affect that? Because the money that you're putting aside for your service and warranty costs or your reinsurance is going not as far.
Okay.
Because all of the parts and things that go into repairing a car costs substantially more than they used to. So it's having to stretch it further. So it's more exposure. It's more expensive than it was 18 months ago. The next one is inventory availability and mix, tight supply. And dealers who are independent dealers that are wanting to make sure that they're starting to encroach, they're picking up the vehicles that have a better rating or better.
Who is?
The independent dealers and the franchise dealers who are trying to.
You mean the independent retail dealer?
The independent retail dealers,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, some of that inventory that you normally get, which is more reliable or more whatever, that if there's going to be a squeeze down or what, those better cars are most likely going to end up in a regular independent dealer.
And I think the tricky part about this, this goes back to what we started with today about this whole business model thing, because I think when we look at this math,
Mm-hmm.
it raises the question or the topic that has come up with me before in work, and even as a dealer myself. I would have this conversation with our team and with fellow dealers in a 20 group. Is like, my model was a financial model, not a car dealership model. In other words, I was in the finance business more than I was in the car business. So what that meant to me as a dealer, in order for me to have discipline within my financial model, I had to stay to a certain cost of car range to make it work for my customer and my own financial plan. So the idea there is, when cost of car goes up, what that could mean for my consumer is that they're going to get a car with a little older model year, a little more miles, because I'm trying to stay in a certain financial model. Whereas others may be moving to, I'm always going to carry, a 6-year-old Camry or whatever that looks like. And so when you stay in that lane, then obviously your costs can go up. And so it's an interesting thing to have to navigate. But I think what's the positive thing for all of this is that a big development, and this is not news, but to me, it's very much newsworthy, is that we're seeing AI have a positive impact on all businesses. And certainly it's coming into our segment in a way that I think is going to have some real meaningful impact. And this is an area in my mind that we can analyze what works best. Like which knob, which lever should we adjust?
Yeah. It's, I like what you said is your sweet spot for buying, age, value, all of that. It's shifting, and it's gonna, to be a little bit more fluid and not, you're gonna have to.
But we get a chance here to move past guesswork. We don't have to go on what, Bob, who's been a dealer for 20 years, he told me at the auction this. Like, that's pretty subjective, and you don't get to get inside Bob's numbers. And so I think what we have a chance to do now is let's dig deeper and see what the data can actually tell us. And I my sense is that the dealers of tomorrow are going to have that information at their fingertips. We don't have the margin for error in buy here, pay here that we did, 10 years ago. And so I think it's going to be important for dealers to get comfortable with the data and the technology that is shaping tomorrow. And so I think that's a good place to wrap up today.
So just the advantage angle, practical with the tariffs, what some of the points that were brought up were dealers who have strong auction relationships and regional sourcing networks are going to have an edge over those relying entirely on major auctions.
Okay.
Which makes sense.
It does.
An awful lot to me. Next one is parts pre-purchasing. So, if you have a shop and you're doing all of your own recon, or that you see if you're doing customer repairs and it's the same kinds of things, buying common repair items before tariff impacts fully materialize is something larger operators are already doing, and smaller independent dealers should consider.
I don't know where you find that information, but I guess AI can help. But yeah, that's hard.
And then there was one last, reconditioning standards and cost control on the lot are more important than ever when your margin per unit is compressed from both the buy side and the sell side. So, reconditioning a vehicle to it's like every dent does not need to be pulled out.
Yeah.
It costs money, and it's like, it's only $20 a dent. Well, that $20, it adds up.
Sure.
It adds up. All of those little things that you're paying someone because it looks better on the front line. I get it, but it's it's kind of the macro or the microeconomics of, you think about your household budget or whatever. If you're going to buy a Diet Coke and a Twinkie, which dates me because I don't think they sell them anymore. You're doing that every day. It's like, it's only this many dollars, but if you stop, or it's that, if you're a smoker and you're buying a pack of cigarettes a day, that's So those kind of things may have to go away in order
Right.
to be able to keep your margins in a range that you feel
Right.
good about, that
Yeah.
you're not hurting your business.
Which that reminds me, you mentioned Twinkie. I just think this is the right time for me to share with you. I have recognized that my own love language, for those not familiar, my love language is donuts.
Oh
And
my
that's
gosh.
being the receiver of donuts really shows love.
And it's like the 5 love languages, they talk about gifts.
Uh-huh.
So Jim will go run an errand in the morning and he comes back with donuts, right? And
Yeah.
so he's like, I
'Cause
bought you your
'cause
favorite kind.
I'm the
I
giver.
don't go. Yeah, I don't independently go to buy donuts. And I had to go run errands this morning, pick up some stuff for the yard. And when I walked to the door, he says, "Did you get donuts?"
Why would you get donuts? I thought you loved me. I thought you say that you love me, but you come back without
Oh my
donuts.
goodness.
There's something about that
Oh
that
my
doesn't
goodness.
add up.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the weekend.
Yeah.
It's the weekend after Memorial Day. It's so hard to believe that June 1st will be Monday.
I know.
So we're
Yeah.
kids are out of school, all the stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have kids
Yeah.
that are in school, but our neighbors' kids
But
are
but
are out
now
of
we
school.
have to drive slower because there are slow children on our street.
That's not
Oh,
what
that's
that
not, that's,
means.
okay,
No.
gotcha. That's a
All
different.
right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. We really appreciate you making us a part of your day. And hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you Monday. Thanks again so much.
Have a good one.